you ready, Gordon?
Good
I'm all
call.
set whenever
What
you
time
are,
you got?
Mr. President.
6?
6:03.
I'd like to call to order tonight's Committee on Liaison. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody that our meetings in the chamber are recorded and broadcast. So with that, I'd ask you to please silence your cell phones. And I would ask if you could please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So the Committee on Liaison consists of the entire City Council. President serves as chair. This evening, you'll note that Councilors Mercer Bruin and Demers are not with us. They're a little under the weather tonight. We send them our best wishes. Hope they feel better soon. A couple of items on the agenda for tonight's liaison meeting. Before we start, I'd ask for a motion on
to
the minutes.
dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's minutes as September 25th.
Second.
Motion second on the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is the resolve that we had in committee to meet with previously the mayor and the department heads. And tonight, we're pleased to be joined by our state delegation. Just in summary, we met a few weeks ago in committee with the mayor and several of our department heads. We had a conversation about an update on the status of the migrant crisis. We got some good information. We had a good dialogue with those department heads as well as His Honor the Mayor. But there were some concerns and some questions that came up, and it was the will of the committee that we invite our state delegation in, perhaps for an update and maybe a little bit of Q&A from the council members, from the committee members, to see how we're progressing and maybe to share some of those concerns that we had heard from our department heads, and basically kind of reach out to our delegation to see what can be done to maybe move things along a little smoother. So I would invite each of the members in whichever order you prefer, if you'd like to speak first, and then we can perhaps get into a Q&A. Thank you very much for being here.
Together, if that's okay.
That works fine, thank you.
First, thanks for having us in. We appreciate it. I know we received some questions from members of the council. I'm happy to go through those just to kind of answer some of the questions that you all submitted.
That would be great.
And that way there, at least it gets us off the mark and might answer some of the questions, obviously, that you guys have. So I know one of the questions was about the lack of interpreters to facilitate communication. National Guard has bilingual and trilingual National Guard staff on site available most days. However, in the absence of translators, they are contracted with a 24/7 language translation line. Each hotel has at least one staff member with translation capabilities, and they use Google Translator frequently when needed. According to the Regional Rapid Response Coordinator, the local Board of Health reported that the city has used Google Translator many times and seems to be working okay. Another question they had, I don't know if maybe I'll do a few and then I'll pass it along. That way, if you guys have editorial comments you want to add in. Lack of clarity regarding authority, points of contact, and chain of command. I'm sure you're all aware that the governor back in August declared a state of emergency around this issue, and just last week took further steps to cap the number of units that folks are going to be housed in. So with regards to the other steps she took last week, which Governor Healy appointed Lieutenant General Scott Rice as the Emergency Assistance Director with the priority to help families who have been in shelter long-term to exit into more permanent housing and to really oversee the entirety of the program. Beyond that, the National Guard is coordinating essential services like food and basic necessities, transportation, medical assistance on site, coordinating with external vendors, community groups, as well as government agencies. And of course, local law enforcement continues to handle law enforcement matters.
Why don't you take this last one, because you talked to them. Well, I did too, but why don't you do it?
So the lack of cooperation or sharing of information with law enforcement, I've communicated with the administration on this issue. I had spoken with Chief Rufo specifically on it, and he was clear that he was concerned about that. This was probably about a month or so ago. I'm told that things are improving, at least from the administration side, but obviously, locally anyways, they're looking for more information on who's located in these hotels. Certainly, I recognize the value in that. Of course, we do get into some kind of personal privacy issues and things of that nature. But from my perspective, I continue to encourage the administration to share more information so that people know what's going on. There's nothing to hide, therefore, why wouldn't we share the information?
Great.
So I think that one of the questions was about when the city can expect reimbursements for expended costs and when we can expect the promise per student reimbursements. So as you know, they've upped the reimbursements. It's $104 per student per day enrolled in the district. I think you now have 83 students. And that, your first payment is going to be in November for those folks. And then also, the city just, the school, sorry, just applied for the emergency grants that were, that DESI was giving for number of kids, $1,000 per student up to a certain cap. And Woburn just applied for that last week, I think, and they are on slate to get that. So they're going to get another $70,000 from DESI for that grant for those students. They have a formula, and so Woburn's getting the max at $70,000. So those are two pieces that are coming in terms of the schools, and then also the state has increased the transportation funding just in the budget, in this past budget, the McKinney-Vento money for students that need to go cross districts. So there's extra money. There's been extra money in the budget, in the school's budget for that as well. There's a newly established fund that'll distribute donations through local organizations to support families with essential needs and services. I think those are the big things that you're around the money for students.
Great.
Okay. Lack of medium to long-term planning to bolster, relieve the private, religious, community-based providers of social services. According to the Regional Rapid Response Coordinator, they meet once a week with that volunteer in Woburn. I know it's every Thursday. And as more things get into place, then those volunteers are now going to be able to do things that they want to do, like support activities, helping kids find play groups, making sure people have clothing. But they've right now been playing such a major role as the state sets up all of these services that they need to set up. The volunteers have taken a really oversized responsibility. And by the way, in Woburn have done an amazing job. I mean, they have been just spectacular. But now they're starting to focus more on the things that you would expect volunteer organizations to do. Now that the National Guard's in place, we now have vendors in 2 places now where there were none before, and so things are getting set up so those volunteers are having less and less responsibility. You want to take the next ones? Oh, sorry. Your glasses.
I'm going to let you read that
Okay.
since it's too small.
All right, and then frustration regarding the misapplication of right to shelter law beyond its original intent. I'm not totally sure what the issue is there. I mean, I want to point out that everybody that's in one of the hotels is here legally and is under the authority of the U.S. government. So I'm not sure what the misapplication of the right to shelter laws that you might have been thinking about. You know, you have to have children under the age of 21 or be pregnant. You have to be a resident of Massachusetts and be living in the U.S. with the knowledge and consent of the Department of Homeland Security, which these people are. And then you have to meet gross standards of
an asset test. So I'm not totally sure what,
I think it merely was an opinion expressed that when the right to shelter law was first enacted in the 80s, this situation we find ourselves in now was not really contemplated, and more a question, has there been an expansion beyond what people originally thought it was to be used for?
I see. I don't think so. I
Okay.
really don't. I mean, the people that are here and in the hotels meet those qualifications, so.
Okay.
Again, they are here legally, and,
Fair enough.
and I think I just want to say that I think the biggest issue that we're struggling with at this particular moment is, how are we getting these people to work? And that has been the biggest, right now, that is the biggest challenge, because if we don't allow them to work, they cannot move out of where they are. And so the state has been working on a plan to try and get around some of the very specific rules about who can work and, immigrants. But I have to be really honest, I'm not totally clear what that's looking like from the state. I know they're setting up a Learn to Earn program, which is something that they have in place for people who are coming without skills, and they basically do a stipend program, and they're evidently building that up so that people can start to match with employers so that they can begin to work under this Learn to Earn program, which is considered more of a job training than actually a job. But it's still a little murky in my mind of how that's going to work. But I know that we have put enormous amount of pressure on the state to get that moving, because we just got to get these people.
Yeah, and on the feds as well, because, I know, I think you guys were in the letter, a lot of us from the legislature sent a letter to Congress and to the president, asking them forcefully to review their policies around allowing folks who are going through the immigration process to work, right? Because Michael Bloomberg had a great opinion in the New York Times, I don't know, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, and one of the comments was, you couldn't create a more backward system where you let people in and they then say you can't work.
Right.
At the end of the day, we all know that there's no better way to help somebody than to help them help themselves, right? And giving people the opportunity to be able to provide for themselves is a big, big piece of that. So again, not that, they can't seem to find a Speaker of the House right now. So that's certainly one of the things that's holding things up, I imagine, down there. But, the hope is that there'll be some movement on that issue, because, again, getting folks to work is a big piece of transitioning them from where they are now to hopefully permanent housing, tax-paying member of our community who can contribute and take care of themselves and their families, which is what they were looking for when they came here.
Great. So what I heard was a pretty good response to the questions and concerns that were raised in the committee meeting. I appreciate that. That was based off my memory of the committee meeting, and those questions that we posed were a summary, a sense of the frustration, the concerns, the questions. Obviously, some things have happened since that meeting. Get a little more clarity, and hopefully the process is a little more streamlined and up and running, and the frustration is reducing. But if you'd be so inclined, I'd like to ask if any of the council members have any questions. Councilor Campbell.
Hi, welcome. Are there any steps that are being taken so that the brunt of the responsibilities for cities like Woburn, who happen to have a lot of hotels, maybe could then be put onto the other cities and towns in finding housing, so that we're not taking all of that responsibility? Is anything moving forward? Has any ideas come forward on what we could, what the state can do to help us with that?
So we did have a briefing, I guess, last week, and the state is looking at much larger facilities to move people to, so like a joint base camp in the Cape. I know they're in some discussions with UMass Lowell. There's a couple, in the dormitory, there's a couple other places. I will tell you that we've been told, and I think you've all seen this, under no uncertain terms, that as of November 1st, there's no more. They are out of hotel rooms, they are out of, they're out of everything. And so. the
Can
big
you
que-
explain that? No, I did not hear that.
Yes, well, the governor has come out to say that we are at capacity. We have no more rooms available. We need to.
Where, in Massachusetts itself?
Massachusetts, yep. And
Okay,
so.
that's good news.
Well,
So go ahead, keep going, I'm sorry.
it's,
Yeah.
it's good news, except if you have people showing up, what happens to those, especially what happens to those children if we don't have, they're setting up a tiered system of who they're gonna, of who they're gonna take in, and there's a whole system of who gets to the head of the line, and so, we're really concerned because what happens if a 5-year-old kid, where do you go and where do you sleep, right? So we're just trying to figure out how all that's going to work. Part of what the state is doing is trying to move people who've been in long-term emergency shelters into permanent housing to free up some of those spaces that are in the more traditional places that we would look at for family housing. So that's one of the things that they're trying to do. The state has given them some money, more money to do that. We've increased our RAFT money, which is the money that keeps people in their houses so that they don't end up homeless. And then we're trying to figure out where these people go because, as you know, housing prices are so, are so high that people can't afford, and there's a lot of people coming into shelter just because they can't afford, So there's a lot of moving pieces, and so people, they're trying to work at each one of these at the same time, and it's going to be a while before it calms down, I think.
Counselor, to your equity question on kind of how impacted other communities are. So there's 90 communities right now. And I pulled the numbers earlier just so we had a general sense. So there's 158 families in Woburn right now, but there's about 7,000 families across the Commonwealth. So, from an equity piece, again, obviously we want to work to try to move folks out of our hotels and into permanent housing situations. It's better for them, it's better for us. But I do think that from an equity piece, I don't think that we're more burdened than other communities that have hotels. To your point about the folks who don't have hotels, I think that that's a more complex issue because of McKinley-Vento and the schools piece, right? Essentially, federal law says that if you're homeless and you're housed in a particular community, you have to go to school in that community. So
Yes,
it complicates, I think, the second part of whether it's, somebody said, well, geez, why can't we maybe, some of the students can't go to a neighboring community, right? Federal law doesn't allow us to do that. So I think that that's, one of the challenges, if that helps to answer some of your question.
Well, yeah, but I see it imbalanced. You said 90 communities, there are 350 cities and towns. I don't consider that evenly spaced over Massachusetts if you're talking about only 90 communities compared to a total of 350. So I'm not sure about that.
But I think it's the number of communities that have hotels.
Okay.
I think that's the.
Remember, some of those communities are very, very small, and they're tiny cities and towns. They don't have one hotel.
Yeah.
And
sometimes they don't even have schools. They're
Right,
sharing
they're
schools with
sharing
neighboring
schools with
communities.
Regional school districts out
Yeah,
west.
for
Two of them don't have police departments.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Other question, I'm trying to think of questions that my constituents had asked. Some of them are very concerned because, like you had said, in the hotels, many of them you don't even know who they are. I think it was you, Rich, that said you can't really go in because of personal privacy issues and finding out more information about these people. So how are the residents supposed to feel safe if you don't even know, if the government doesn't even know, or the state, I should say, the city, know
I guess a
who
couple
they
things. So
are?
everybody's, everybody's been vetted by the federal government.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
then
they're
what,
here under the protections of the federal government, so they've went through the asylum process, and the state knows who they are.
okay,
Number one, and number two, I would say it's a little bit, it's challenging, right? Because if somebody moved into an apartment on Green Street, Alderman or Councilor Gately wouldn't get an email indicating who that person is who moved in, right? We rely upon a census that takes place once a year. It assumes that person actually responds. So oftentimes, we don't know who people are who move in and out of our city, I guess is my point.
okay. I mean, it was just also with our last meeting with the committee meeting, Chief Rufo had some concerns about a few of the migrants that had some sort of security anklets on or something, and he could not get information on that, and he found that extremely troublesome, and obviously so did I, just to find out what was it from exactly, why was it that, why are they
It's a
on
fair
their
criticism,
ankles?
I think.
Excuse
Yeah,
me?
it's a fair criticism. I mean, there is an answer to it, but it would have been nice for the state to say, oh, yeah, this is what we know about it, which is that actually the federal government did it when they first came in while they were vetting them, and then they just
So is
did them
it,
so fast that,
I know, is there somebody that is looking into that, so, to help the chief? He's saying that he couldn't really get many answers on that, and he found that very concerning.
Okay, so he wants,
He wants to find out, yeah, why do they have them on their ankles? What is it for? Is there any safety issues? At least that's what I understood from the meeting. I don't want to
right.
say something that maybe he didn't, but that was my understanding.
Yeah, generally speaking, but I think, as Rich said, he's talked to Chief Rufo in the meantime, and the hope is that some of this communication is clearing up now, and
Yeah, I think he's
information
gotten more
is
info.
being exchanged.
Okay,
I think he's got more info from the feds or from the state indicating why it is the federal government put those on those individuals.
okay. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's just concerning, obviously, and I do want to go back to the people that have asked me and let them know to ease their minds, more or less, even though everything does seem to be going more smoothly. And I guess my other question was, how long did everybody know this was happening before, say, the cities knew that this was happening? I just feel like this was dropped on us all at once. Not even, especially I help work with St. Vincent de Paul at St. Charles in Woburn. And they're still working tirelessly there. I mean, they're getting exhausted, but boy, they're troopers. They're wonderful. But they didn't have time to even prepare.
No, nobody's had any time. So,
Okay.
we have had as little notice as all of you, unfortunately. Usually, often the people are presenting after hours when state offices are closed, and we'll get an email on a Monday morning, 10 more families were placed in your district, and they're already in. So that kind of thing. There's people are coming too quickly. Families are in urgent and immediate need, and they're, I think, reacting to just make sure people have housing. So unfortunately, it's a fluid situation that is not ideal in any circumstances.
But I don't think the state saw it, it's not like the state knew
That's right.
and then waited to tell everybody. All of us, they started seeing, they get started like 50 families, and then the next month it was like 100 families, and then it was 1,000, and they just were so caught, everyone was caught off, was really caught off guard.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Counsel Gately?
Hi. We do have a pretty bad immigration problem. You all know it. Why? Let's stop pulling the punches. We know we can't take care of all these people. Right? All the hotels, motels, any place you can stick them, you're sticking them. Right? The kids want to go to school and want to learn. You have to get the kids into the school. You got to have buses. You have to have anyway. On Woburn's end of it, and I believe me, I've been here over 73 years. Woburn's end of it is we have good people. We have good caring people. And we also have 2 buildings in Woburn right now that are vacant. Both of them are schools. You got the Hurl School, you got the Wyman School. I believe the money for renovations for those 2 schools you can put dozens or hundreds of people in there. It's got water, it's got sewer, it's got drainage, they have bathrooms, they have kitchens, they got areas that you can play in, they got areas you can go outside. And you got the winter coming up, and you have to have some place to put these people. There's your places right there. You know? You're gonna have to renovate them, but you know, the money you're spending on hotels right now, it's easy to renovate it.
I think the hope is, Alderman, Counselor, I gotta keep correcting myself. When I sat there, I called everybody Alderman. The real hope, I think, is to try to find more permanent situations for folks to live.
You got more and more coming in all the time, so you have to find someplace to put them. I don't see, where do you think you're gonna find all these permanent addresses?
I mean,
They're not building them that fast, you know?
the state is open to all ideas, so, you know,
Lay it on me.
not a,
So,
We also
the
have,
funny part about it, there's a lot of nice people that are coming in. You know, you have your share of other type of people, but you really have some nice ones coming in, and the kids. I know a few of them, I've met them. And, they're not doing very well. The fear of where they're gonna go next, or where they're gonna get this, where they're gonna get that, the medicine for the children. If we're gonna take them in, we gotta figure a way how to maintain them, how to take care of them. And my suggestion about those two schools didn't come after, I think I'll do that. I've been thinking about this for over a month. I say, hey, that's the spot to renovate and put them in there for, they're gonna keep coming in. This train is not gonna stop. Not like the MBTA Green Line that stops all the time, you know? So, it's something to think about.
it is.
it's a very
I
interesting.
don't know how many more you can take. You get 351 cities and towns. How many right now have immigrants in them,
90.
you know? You'll find out
You
when they
probably,
start tearing down apple trees to eat, you know? So, yeah. That's my suggestion. I hope somebody can do something with it.
All set? Thank you. Council Dillon?
Thank you, President Concanon. First off, I want to publicly, from the city of Woburn, thank the three of you for coming tonight, for your time. And I'll personally thank you. I've called all three of you at different times, and I always get a very timely response. Greatly appreciated. So, you touched on the question I was going to ask, is there a way to speed up the work process? Because we could take a situation that needs some help and make it a positive, where we have restaurants, entertainment venues closing early, only open 5 days a week. And here we have some very talented folks. I'll go into the culinary part of the Haitian cooking, just as an example. Very popular. And we could put them to work pretty quick. It would be a benefit for us and a benefit for them, and it'd be the first step to get them into our society, and so they feel as part of our society. So I thank you for looking into that. I think that's really something we should focus on and see if you guys can help us with that. The other thought I have is more just trying to make sure that everyone's safe. The immigrants, our residents, and I think our students, the students that are from the immigrants, it's just, I think we have to make sure, as Councilor Campbell stated, everyone's safe. And I know you guys are doing the best you can. The whole process came quickly. There was no blueprint for it, really, somewhat like COVID. We went as we had it come to us. The last thing I'll say is I appreciate you here for the reason that we have communication. Again, I said to thank yous first because I've always been able to get in touch with each and every one of you. Maybe isn't the place because it's more of a federal problem, but when I hear that they came to our town and met with our mayor on a Tuesday, and I found out about it and opened up the Friday paper, troubling to me. That puts people, in my opinion, on edge. They question the transparency of it. So whatever you can do to continue to keep us informed, it's greatly appreciated.
I think on the communication piece, I think it's something that if you guys have questions tonight, of course, but beyond this, if you have further questions, reach out to us. It doesn't have to be a formal resolve if you want to go that route, sure, but if not, just send a communication, as a member of the council, and I think that all three of us are happy to try to get those questions answered. We're not administering this program, right? The administration, the governor is administering the program. So oftentimes we're going to the administration for some of the information and whatnot that you all are looking for and that we're looking for, quite candidly. So don't hesitate to reach out if you get questions from constituents. We want this to be an open process, and we want people to feel comfortable understanding the challenges that we're all kind of facing with this situation.
Thank you again.
If I could just jump in on the safety piece, just to comment a little bit about the public health component. When I reached out to the Secretary's office for an update about what was going on, they provided information about the regular health nurses that they're sending and the vouchers for the kids to get physicals and to make sure they're screened for vaccinations and all kinds of things that will make sure that they're safe and healthy and also that the community is safe and healthy. I found that very promising, including the prenatal care that they were offering. So they gave me a list of dates of all the different clinics that they had held, and I was very reassured that they were thinking through that component of wellness for these families and for the broader community.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council Viola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank the three of you for coming tonight. Michelle, you actually just touched on one of my questions, which was on the vaccinations and stuff. But question about the revenues that these hotels are bringing in now that they're getting from the state. Now, is the city of Woburn still recouping some of that funding that we put back into our general coffers, as we always do from the hotels?
Hotel motel tax?
Yes.
It is being covered now.
All right, so what they're getting, what is it, $190-something a day? So what? So the city is getting a portion of that, correct?
As I understand it, they're
That's
getting
what we've been told, yeah.
the normal hotel motel tax.
Okay. All right.
So in other words, even though the state is technically the vendor,
Correct.
sales tax is still applied.
Correct. And there was an issue because there's a carve out. If you're somewhere beyond 30 days, it's considered long-term stay, and therefore you're not responsible for hotel motel taxes. As I understand it, the state has changed its tune and is paying the hotel motel tax.
That's good to hear. Okay. My second question is now with our emergency rooms in the hospitals being overrun, I mean, doctors, nurses, through COVID and everything now, they're overworked, stressed out, seeing now that the migrants don't have primary care physicians and stuff to go see, they're utilizing the emergency rooms. Is the state thinking about doing anything to offset that, to help the hospitals out or the doctors and nurses by maybe utilizing the National Guard as they did before?
Yeah, and I also think what they're doing is what Michelle alluded to, right? They're being much more proactive about getting kids in to see doctors. There's a lot of folks going to like the Lowell Community Health Center, to Lawrence, and then they're having more of, as they get vendors in place, they're going actually to the hotels and motels. I have to say, and doing checkups, getting vaccinations. Woburn the schools have a program with Burlington where they have a clinic every month with medical students that come in, do checkups, make sure the kids are being vaccinated. That's been up and running, and I guess it's being very utilized a lot with these new group of immigrants that have come in. So there's a lot of work being done around that to get health care and to get to make sure. There are holes for sure. And what I can say is that when we learn about something specific, the state has been very good at responding to that particular thing. So while that particular issue, so while they're setting up these structures, and I think they've done a pretty good job, things fall through the cracks. If you hear anything, you call us, we call them, And there has been, I have to say, a really good response from them to get people to prenatal care. I think for a while, there was a real disconnect between what the hotels were telling people and what they were allowing volunteers or the state to do to come in and find out about folks, like kids who weren't showing up for school, people who were sick. I think that's getting worked out, so that's going to make that whole transition and ensuring healthcare a lot easier.
That's great to hear.
But there'll still be, it's not
Right.
perfect, right?
Exactly.
The state's also actually providing pediatric physical exam vouchers to get the kids to go to the doctor before they have to present at an emergency room. So very specifically giving them a free voucher and saying, go here to these different local doctors. So,
Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
one of the big issues is transportation.
Right.
Because a lot of places have stood up to take people. It's just getting people back and forth, and I think having the National Guard is going to really help with that.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
All set? Counselor Ferrullo, did you have something?
Just real briefly, thank you all for being here. On the public safety issue, without minimizing Chief Rufo's concerns, respecting those, the requirement to disclose criminal history is minimal for anybody, and I think that statutorily, any criminal history that needs to be disclosed is now being disclosed to the extent that there is any. But I don't think it's as big of an issue as it was at the outset. Concerns were addressed, and that they're being treated as if any other citizen of the community in the state. And I talk to Bobby often, and I think we're making great progress there.
That's great to hear.
Good to hear that.
Great.
And thank you for your collective support in getting there.
Counselor DeMembro.
Thank you all for being here. So the Sonesta Hotel's in my ward, and my concern is, from what I'm hearing, and I'm going to touch base on a couple of, what my colleagues have said, it's kind of a small facility. So it's, even though it's beautiful on the the outside and everything, but in the inside, it's a little tight. I guess my concern is, it's kind of a two-part question. One, you mentioned that it's important that, that we get them into the labor market. And I believe they need some sort of labor documentation or a card. And for what I'm hearing, and again, you can tell me if it's right or wrong, that process takes in excess of 18 months. So I guess, my question is, will these folks that are occupying 110 of those rooms over there at the Sonesta, and I believe it's at full occupancy at this point, will they be staying at that hotel for 18 months, or will you be rotating people, in and out to other locations? And my other part to that question is, once they're in the labor market, and they've obtained jobs, how are they going to transition out of a hotel atmosphere into permanent residencies when Massachusetts is pretty much one of the most expensive states to live in? I mean, we all know that rents are anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 for studios, up to $3,000 for a one-bedroom. And property values just in Woburn, a parcel of land with a tear-down, barely buildable lot is $650,000. So that's a big concern of mine, how we're going to transition from taking low-wage jobs and being able to afford, anywhere from $3,000-$4,000 a month just to cover the bills. So I was wondering if you could expand on those two. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt.
I was just going to say, there's not an easy answer for this one. Obviously, we're in a housing crisis in Massachusetts and have been for quite a while, and I know that Woburn has been doing more than its share of building housing pretty rapidly, and all of the communities that are MBTA communities are in the process of doing their required rezoning. But the governor also just filed a housing bond bill just last week, the largest bond bill that's been filed in history, over $4 billion. And I know that we are all very anxious to see that move forward, and there'll be hearings this fall with action we expect sometime in the spring. That is part of the answer of accelerating the construction of new housing and permanent housing, and I think some portion of those bond funds will have to be spent on some of the types of units that are more affordable, and there's different categories for affordability, and we need to build low income and not just moderate income or market rate housing. There's a lot of tax credits and different programs that are really going to bolster the development market. That's not a short-term solution at all, but I think some of the other creative ideas that we heard tonight, we're going to have to look at all options, because people can't stay in hotels long-term. There's no cooking facilities, there's no way to take care of themselves and their families in a way that is.
And it affects them mentally as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's a mental health
So
aspect to
the
it.
state is in the process of setting up a program that will, that they believe will get around the barriers that the federal government has for people who don't have a certified work permit, because you're right, they're taking too long to get those work permits out, and that's one of the things that everybody's is pressing the federal government and the administration, the federal administration, get those out faster, because they're all here and actually eligible to work. They just need that card, so that the employers are protected, because they are, they're hiring people that have been certified, okay, and they have that certification. So the state is now setting up a program where they are using their ability to train, to use training funds to bring employers, of which there are many, as you've noted, there are many, many employers that are signing up to have these people work in their industries, et cetera, but that they're matching those together through a training program, because you can take people with certain kinds of certifications and allow them to train. And so that's what the state, I think, is setting up, so that everybody is protected. And what we're trying to find out is, okay, when's it starting, because we want that to be put in place as soon as possible. That will allow people to start earning money, and it also will allow employers who are so desperate for people to work to hire those folks through the state. So that's one of the short-term answers to this.
And touch base on that, with the training, I'm sure some of them have some skills.
Oh,
There are
yeah.
skill sets that are coming with them.
Absolutely.
It's just a question of how you navigate, negotiate, how to match it up with what we have available, which we have a pretty thriving industry and commercial market here, so there should be plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably get into discussions about what's training and what's training, and,
Well, as long as you're learning
and
something,
what's
it's
training,
training.
as long as, it's like, so that's, I think that's the trick, is that they're trying to figure out, because the big issue is protecting, in a way, is protecting the employers. Because the employers are on the hook when somebody illegally works.
Understood.
So
And Lou, to your point,
expanding it.
the question, Counselor, with regards to that housing's really expensive, and certainly, obviously, I think we all, after tonight, know that and recognize that, right? But about half of the 7,000 folks are in other types of shelter situations, and about half are in hotels. So, the hope is that, people do transition out often, daily and weekly. And the hope is that those folks were able to stand up on their feet and get paying jobs. And perhaps there are other state programs that they're going to avail themselves of to help maybe bridge that gap between what they can afford and what the cost of housing is. And then you kind of backfill some of the other shelter opportunities in order to move folks out of these hotel situations that we know.
Which is burdensome. It will be burdensome on the state when you start backfilling, you start meeting that
Yeah.
20 or
But still
30
way
or
cheaper
40%.
But still way cheaper than our current situation. I mean, that's from the monetary side, if you're paying $190 a night, that's roughly $6,000 a month per room.
Right.
We know that there are a lot cheaper options out there, options that are way better for families and way better for people's future at a much cheaper dollar amount than $6,000.
I also think that like in some of the discussions that we've had with the state, there is this belief, based on many years of experience, that when you get people making money, they will get together and get housing together. So it's not just each individual, it's that, you know, historically, immigrants who have come to this country, my grandparents included, you know, they lived together with the groups until they made enough money that they could go out on their own. And so I think once you get money into people's pockets, they band together and figure out how can we move out, how can we make this work. So I think that's also part of it, because remember, these people don't want to be in hotels.
Correct.
I mean, it's not a good place, so.
Oh, excellent. I thank you for your answers. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Set. Any other questions? Council Campbell?
I just want to confirm, just because, once again, because I am working with some people from St. Vincent de Paul. So did you say, I just want to make sure, that we're not accepting any more immigrants here or migrants here into Massachusetts?
What we've been
That you
told
know
is
of?
that as of November 1st, we will be at full capacity,
Okay.
and there will be no more places to put anybody. Now, as people move out of the shelter system, that will free up space, but until that happens, what the governor is saying is we are at capacity. We don't have, and I think they're working, I know that the Senate President and the Speaker and the Governor met today to say, what does it mean when we reach capacity? What does that look like? So that's what we're being told.
Okay, because I know one of their biggest concerns, obviously, and it's really a wonderful thing to see. I mean, really, the groups getting together and working together. It was really amazing to help all these families, and they're still doing it. Their concern is just so that they can prepare, like how many might be coming still? How long might this go on? Will there be any relief, any time where, you know, things won't be quite so hectic? And so what you're saying is that once they're able to, say, leave the hotels, or then more can come in? I'm trying to figure that out. Or you don't know
just
yet
don't
either?
know.
We just don't know. We don't know
Okay.
what it, you know,
Okay,
we're as questioning as you are,
okay.
what this means and from what the governor has said. We really are. We're like,
Yeah, okay. So if you could let us know, if you find out, you know,
great, and you let us
that
know.
would, yeah, right, oh, yeah, no, that would be great. Because they want to be ready, of course. I mean, these are just really wonderful people. I mean, they're exhausted. I can honestly say that. They're burnt out, they're exhausted. They're working constantly, almost 24/7, trying to help these people, which is just, for me, overwhelming and just a beautiful thing to see. So if I could give them some idea about, you know, what to expect, but it doesn't sound like you know either as of yet. Just one other question. How many immigrants do we know of that have come into the state? Do we have a number approximately?
Yeah, it's about half. Half of the families are migrants, half are part of the emergency assistance program that we had in place.
Do you know, have a number? Do we have a number?
Well, there's about 12,000, I think, total.
About 12,000. That's including not families or total numbers?
That's total number of people,
Yeah, okay.
so 3,500 families.
Yeah, that's what I've heard is 3,500 or 3,600 families.
Oh, okay, great. All right, thank you very much.
Council Gailey?
Hi, it's me again. My concerns with the immigrants, and I've worked with immigrants for 50 years. And the jobs I was on, the construction and everything. Nothing wrong with them, they know how to work. But, my thought process now is these people who are here, are they gonna be, with the winter coming in, the bad stuff's coming, and nothing's gonna stop it. You know, are they gonna be warm? Are they gonna be fed? Are they gonna have a place to shelter down? Are the children gonna be able to get their medicine? Are they gonna be able to get out to go to a doctor's office or to a supermarket or whatever. That's my concerns. They may be here, but we want to make sure they are here, they're taken care of. That's a big thing with me. I'd hate to see somebody in some hotel that the heat's not working and it's 30 degrees out. That ain't gonna work with me, I know that. So, that's part of the whole thing that's going on. You can put them in any place you wanna put them, but when the snow and the ice hit, you gotta make sure they're protected. Because a lot of these countries they come from, they don't have any snow. They don't know what it is. They'll have a hat out there, see if they can eat like ice cream or something, you know? So, all right.
Okay. Anything else? Well, just from the chair, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate your time. Like I said, about a month ago, we had a meeting with a lot of questions. I think we've gotten some clarity in the meantime. We certainly got some more tonight. So you guys taking the time to come in and speak to us directly is much appreciated.
Thank
So-
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Want me to stick around and cast a couple of votes? There's a couple of open seats, I see.
See you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Have a good night.
So I think we just keep that matter in committee in case we need further updates at some point. The next item is the order authorizing the mayor to participate in the Massachusetts Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, PACE Massachusetts. We have Casey Haggerty, our Economic Development Manager, and Rob Dolan from Mass Development here. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your patience.
Good evening, everyone. We're here to talk to you tonight about an initiative from Mass Development called the PACE program. PACE stands for the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, and it's designed to promote sustainable development, energy efficiency, and environmental conservation in communities across the state. PACE offers commercial property owners an innovative way to finance energy improvements. Through a special betterment assessment on their property tax bills, property owners can fund these improvements, and it's essential to note that no public funding is used in this program. Participation in the PACE program is not only straightforward, but is also potentially transformative for our city. It requires a one-time opt-in of the City Council. By allowing local businesses and property owners to access low-cost, long-term financing for energy efficiencies and renewable energy projects, PACE can stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and increase property values. By opting into the PACE program, we can position Woburn as a forward-thinking and environmentally conscious community. Woburn can be a leader in promoting sustainability and responsible development. I'd like to emphasize that both Rob and I have met with the key department heads who would be involved with this program, and they're supportive of the program and understand the benefits to the city. Now I'd like to introduce Rob Dolan, Mass Development's Vice President for Green Lending, and he can answer more detailed questions for you.
Yep, great. So you want me to go over here?
Wherever you want, whatever's more comfortable for you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Rob Dolan from Mass Development. Hopefully you folks are familiar with Mass Development. We do a lot of financing solutions with municipalities, developers, on a host of different issues, whether it's brownfields remediation, finding financing for nonprofits through bonds. And one of the areas we've been charged with recently administering is the PACE program. So it's a state program, and we work with the Department of Energy Resources on administering it. And Casey, I think, circulated a document with you folks that I think had a lot of pertinent information, and she provided a really good overview. It's a relatively new program to Massachusetts. It's nationally known program. It's really focused on commercial property owners. And when we say commercial property owners, we're talking about the regular commercial property owners, also residential 5 units or more. So if there's a mixed-use property, they can utilize PACE, and nonprofits can also utilize PACE. But the main nuance with nonprofits is that they need to receive a tax bill from the municipality, and obviously some nonprofits aren't really supportive of kind of setting that precedent. But it has happened. We worked with some nonprofits that have looked to do PACE. So really what it is it's another way for commercial property owners to finance energy improvements. And so when we talk about energy improvements, we're talking about solar panels, HVAC systems, a new roof to support solar panels, a host of different things. And it's for existing commercial properties and it's, excuse me, for new construction as well. So pretty much the umbrella is very broad. Typically, the question we get is, why would a commercial property owner want to utilize PACE rather than just getting a conventional loan, going to bank, getting money, installing these measures? The PACE program unlocks certain things that folks find attractive because it's a betterment assessment. So in essence, it's very similar to a conventional loan. You have a capital provider, they're a lender. In this program, they're called capital providers. It's a lender will provide a business with funds to do these energy improvements. Rather than the property owner paying directly based on a certain amortization schedule that they've developed with that bank, the property owner, in essence, would have a betterment assessment on their property tax bill. And the property tax bill would then be paid, the betterment assessment would be paid to the municipality, in this case, the city of Woburn, and you folks would then remit it to Mass Development. Mass Development would then pay the capital provider. The reason why that has to happen is obviously you can't have private entities putting assessments on property tax bills. It's obviously under the jurisdiction of the city and town, the respective city and town, and that treasurer and tax collector. And so the reason why that is attractive to certain property owners is that a lot of these property owners, they don't know how long they're going to be in the facility that they're doing the energy improvements on, and they can be costly. So they're reticent to do these investments in the property. With PACE, the financing is tied to the property and not necessarily not the person who's actually doing the financing. And so if that property owner decides they want to move out, that remaining assessment would then transfer to the new property owner. It can be prepaid at closing, but otherwise it would transfer to the property owner, because the whole principle behind this is that the new property owner is reaping the benefit of the financing by reduced energy consumption and savings. Also, they can pay this off over a longer period of time under PACE than they may normally do. So, for example, in Greenfield, we did a PACE financing for a gentleman where he initially took out a 10-year loan. Under PACE, he was able to pay it off over 20 years, which obviously helps his cash flow. And the reason for that is the repayment schedule is tied kind of the useful life of the measure. So, if you're putting in a new roof for the solar panels, that's obviously the useful life is quite long. And also the rates on PACE financings are competitive compared to other kind of ways that they might have to fill in the capital stack. So, if you have a $10 million project and you can get a loan from your community bank or a bank you have a relationship for about $3 or $4 million, you still have to figure out how you're going to raise the other funds for that. And the PACE interest rates that are typically provided by these lenders are more competitive than mezzanine debt or other kind of mechanisms. So there's a number of different reasons why commercial property owners would want to do PACE. The reason I'm before you folks is, like I mentioned, it requires a municipal opt-in. This is not something we can mandate for you folks. It really is something that, Mass Development is in charge of briefing folks, staff, city staff, treasurer, tax collector, and elected officials like you. And if you folks feel comfortable moving forward, we then would work with the treasurer and tax collector on, if there was a closing in your community, we would then work with them on doing whatever they needed to update their tax software, because some communities are very familiar with betterment assessments, whether it's for infrastructure work. Some communities that we work with, they don't do any betterment assessments. And Mass Development realizes that. So we retained a consultant called MuniCap at our cost, and we would work with that treasurer, tax collector, and other city and town staff on doing whatever needed to do to update their tax software. The two main questions I get is for municipalities is, what does it mean for bandwidth for our staff? And really what it means is, once there's a financing that's closed, they would then, for that property owner, they would have to update that property owner's tax bill to add the betterment assessment. The main thing with that is that under the PACE statute, the cycling and billing and collection cycle has to adhere to whatever that city or town's existing billing and cycle schedule is. So there won't be any ad hoc billing by the treasurer, tax collector, or assessor, or whoever's kind of in charge of that. So really, the city or town's acting as a pass-through. They're remitting the money to us on the existing kind of billing and collection cycle. For the other question I get is, what is the exposure for the city or town? What if a property owner doesn't pay their betterment assessment? So at the closing of the financing, and this was actually in, I think, the document that Casey circulated, the lien is transferred to the capital provider. So just like a private mortgage, the capital provider is in charge of kind of enforcement of collections if there's a missed payment. So the city or town is not, they are not involved of any kind of collection of missed payments. And I think it's important to add that property tax collections are always kind of, and existing municipal assessments are always in first in line, and the PACE assessment is subordinated to that, so the city or town will always kind of get paid first before the lender, the capital provider, is paid if there's any kind of delinquent payments. So we've had 69 cities or towns adopt it so far. It's kind of a broad cross-section. You know, you have everybody from Dudley and Ashburnham to Cambridge and Boston. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you folks may have. I know that was a lot of information.
Councilor Dillon.
Thank you for your time today. When I checked into this and did some research, it seems like it's good for the business, good for the environment, good for the city. No catch. I couldn't find any hook.
Yeah.
There's no downfall in this. It's
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, City Councilor, what we try to be very transparent about is that we want to make staff comfortable, city and town staff comfortable with, we want them to kick the wheels on it because they usually have questions and they know better than anything else about like what it might mean for their respective city or town staff. But beyond the fact that, you know, they're involved in kind of placing the betterment assessment and collecting it, you know, which is maybe work for them, there really isn't any exposure for the municipality. This is a very kind of timely issue because of the new building code that folks are seeing and adopting in their respective municipalities. You know, you're seeing people move to different stretch codes so that their commercial stock is becoming carbon neutral. And so, you know, the cities and towns are kind of, passing these new stretch codes, and they realize they have to give kind of another tool in the toolbox for commercial property owners to be able to pay for these kind of things. And so PACE is just kind of one of those options for them. It might not be the best option for a commercial property owner. That's really up to them. They may get a better deal with a conventional loan, or maybe they get a grant. And as mass development, we're happy for them. We want them to get the lowest cost of capital possible. We're really just looking for, like I mentioned, another tool for them. So there really isn't any catch. Yep.
one last question. When you say commercial, as an example, a 20-unit apartment building that's residential, would that qualify
Yep.
for a new heating system?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Councilor DeMambro.
How you doing? Thank you for being here. So my question is more on the terms, the lines of the equipment and the gear and panels. Are we talking high-end, state-of-the-art stuff? Are the commercial businesses going to be subjected to, you can only select these types of units or this type of equipment from this specific manufacturer? Or is it a broad spectrum of, as long as it's solar panels and it fits? Like, I'm trying to just wrap because I know under the Mass Save program, they always list certain heating systems and specific ones, whether it's gas or oil or solar panels specific. I just want to know how broad this is so that the commercial market and any developers can wrap their head around saying, maybe I can select, this type of system over what they suggest.
Yeah, so there are no requirements for like a certain type of system, so they can use what other equipment they were going to ultimately use for like HVAC or panels or solar systems or like installing new roofs or any of that wiring or anything that may support the energy efficiency or renewable energy improvements that they're doing. There is a requirement under the program that, and the reason the Department of Energy Resources is involved with us is there's a requirement when they apply that they have to show that they're actually reducing energy consumption and saving themselves money. So they have to save themselves money over the life of the improvements. So, if you're doing a 20-year financing, you can show the savings over that prospective period of time, and that you're ultimately reducing energy consumption. And so that's, if there was any catch about what equipment they were using, it would probably be the Department of Energy Resources review it and say, you're using this energy equipment, but you might want to look at this because it might reduce your energy consumption further. But that's all part of the application process and kind of a back and forth with the property owner on their application. But there's no specific requirement like you have to use this brand or this kind of equipment.
So does that mean they send out some sort of an assessment team to, or review the plans or review the property so that the commercial customer, you know, gets the best bang for their buck as well as the energy.
Typically,
Conservation.
the application does require or ask them to undergo kind of some kind of energy audit or engage an engineer to do kind of a review of their energy systems, because we want them to obviously do a holistic approach. We don't want them to do a financing that, you know, put solar panels on, but then their windows aren't, you know, they have super old windows. So we do ask them to engage an engineer. We ask them to do the energy audits and try to take advantage of as many of the grants and tax credits that they have out there. And then what happens is they usually come to us, the lender usually typically, who operate in the PACE world. They're not only lenders, but they also are kind of like project managers, because they know, you know, that their kind of, their knowledge can help move a deal forward and kind of provide a package to mass development and DOER that answers a lot of these questions. But it's also kind of an iterative process where we'll get an application with some information and specs, and then, you know, we'll review it with the DOER, and then if DOER asks questions, we'll go back to the property owner. And it doesn't mean that they failed the application process. It just means, like I mentioned, it's just a step in the process. So DOER doesn't do on-site, they don't do on-site visits to kind of provide like feedback and consultation of like what that property owner may do. That's really kind of on the property owner when they're going through their property and figuring out what they need to do. But that said, like I mentioned, when we get the application, it's not just you submit an application and then you don't hear back. We have a kind of a back and forth conversation about what they're ultimately trying to do.
And the end goal is to save energy and save the commercial customer, or, you know, the larger property owner, money in the long run,
Exactly.
utility-wise.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Viola.
Thank you. Do you foresee the city having to hire any more employees to work with this program?
We haven't seen that in other communities. Usually the team that I talk to is the treasurer, tax collector, the assessor, the CFO, you know, and typically they don't really see a major issue with this. If the city or town doesn't really move forward with this, typically it's just because there's not a project in the pipeline. And at that point in time, the city or town staff just might be like, yes, we will address it, but we'll address it like when there's a property owner really interested in it. Lately, that has been an issue because of the items I've mentioned, where the stretch code and there's really focus on carbon neutrality and creating sustainable commercial properties. So typically, we're meeting with more and more municipalities, to be perfectly honest, that are looking to do this. But from a staffing perspective, we haven't seen it. And, you know, the billing and collections that have happened so far with PACE financings have worked. They've been billed, they've been collected. There hasn't been any kind of snafus with the software or any, we haven't gotten any feedback like we're underwater or anything like that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
Any other comments or questions from the council?
Just one.
Councilor Dillon.
Just for those not in the construction world like you and I are, just explain what the stretch code is for the public.
So typically, this is where the DVR would be helpful, but I think stretch code is building code that is kind of details exactly what standards you have to meet if you're building certain stuff. And I think, and obviously you can tell I'm not an expert in this, so perhaps you can provide for more perspective, but it's becoming probably more stringent on what you can build and how you can build it to make sure that you're proving that you're not providing something that is, using fossil fuels, for example. I think the main thing with stretch code is that they're trying to move to full electricity or passive energy use and away from fossil fuels. So, I think Cambridge recently passed a pretty stringent stretch code, specialized code. I think a number of other communities have done that. With the intent to make sure the commercial property owners are building commercial properties prospectively that are good for the environment and reduce use of fossil fuels.
Perfectly.
Is that all right? Okay.
So just from the chair, in reviewing this proposed order, I did have a couple of questions, but I think you've answered them tonight. Initially, I was concerned that if we were to opt in as a community, this betterment assessment tax became like a automatically assessed tax to somebody whether or not they were actually seeking to do this type of improvement, which clearly it isn't. Thank you for that. So it's completely up to the individual business owner to decide whether they want to participate in this and take advantage of what it has to offer. Otherwise, there's no cost.
Exactly.
Nothing.
It's almost like a private loan where you find a lender, they quote you a rate, they quote you the terms, and if you're comfortable, you move forward and you close on that deal, and then if that happens, then the assessment shows up. And I would just mention one thing with the assessment is, at the closing, we're not expecting the city or town to all of a sudden be like ready to bill that assessment. We know there's going to be some time needed for them to do so. And so this usually doesn't happen. If there's a closing on a property, the actual first billing and collection usually doesn't happen until like a year after that. And so it's not, if a property owner closes on the financing and all of a sudden like they need to be billed an assessment, like I mentioned, it has to adhere to the existing billing cycle that city or town uses. And there's usually some cushion for time in that.
Yeah, I'll add, that's what made both the assessor and the tax collector pretty comfortable with this project, was the fact that they could kind of set the timeline on when this would be billed. And I think the fact that Mass Development will provide a consultant to work with the community was a really big selling point for those two positions, at least.
And that was actually my other question. What would the actual impact be, and how would our treasurer, feel about that? I did have a similar question about, does this require more personnel, or is it adding more time to their day? And the way you've explained it, where it's basically incorporated into our cycle, you have somebody available to help us tweak software or whatever we need to do, so it's almost automatic. That's comforting. I wasn't sure if there was an opportunity for some sort of holdback on the part of the city for our trouble, some sort of percentage or fee or something, but it sounds like there isn't. It's a straight pass-through. Which is fair enough. As long as there's no additional burden, I guess there doesn't need to be a profit to be made.
The only component of that I would say is that if for some reason your tax software, and most tax collection software doesn't need like an adjustment for a betterment, usually it's built right in there that you can toggle on and off. But if there's some reason that your city's tax collection software needs an upgrade and that does cost money, as long as it's reasonable, Mass Development will cover that cost.
Good, fair enough. Okay, anything else?
Just on exactly what you said, if I'm a business owner coming into either Woburn or one of our competing neighbors, and they don't have this, and I look at it here in Woburn, it would be something that I'd look hard at, and probably a decision maker if it was apples to apples, and we had it. So I think it's something encouraging to look at.
Good. Okay, anything else we need to know, Casey or Rob? No? What is the will of the committee on this order as to whether we should adopt it, opt in? Is it the will of the committee that we send this out to pass?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. We'll send that out to the full council.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Make a motion to open up the Committee on Infrastructure and Public Lands.
Second.
Councilors Gately, DeMambro, Mercer Bruin, Viola, and Dillon.
Thank you, Gordon.
We were supposed to have the city engineer in here tonight with Downey, Mercer, Bruin, both are ill. So I'd like a motion to just hold us over in committee until such a time that they can attend.
Make that
Second.
motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's minutes?
Second.
And on the same, may I jump one?
Aye.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
On the same thing, in the Committee on Special Permits about the 471 Salem Street, I was asked to, that the people would not be showing up, just to put it on hold for the next committee.
Yep, understood. We can get to that in a minute unless you want to take it out of order, but it shouldn't take very long to get to that.
Motion to adjourn on Committee on Infrastructure?
Second.
Call the Committee on Public Safety and License to order. I'm the chairman, Councilor Ferrullo. With me on the committee is Councilor Dillon, Councilor Campbell, Councilor Demers, who is absent, and Councilor Viola.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 10th, 2023.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
passes. First on the agenda is the petition of renewal of a first-class motor vehicle sales license for CN Wood Environmental LLC at 200 Merrimack Street. All paperwork is in order, insurance is in order. I'll entertain a motion to send that out to pass with existing conditions.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Woburn Foreign Motors, 394 Washington Street, petition for the renewal of a first-class vehicle sales license. All paperwork's in order, insurance is in order. So entertain a motion to send it out to pass with existing conditions.
Same motion?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Sorry, trying to get going too fast here. Petitions for renewal of second-class motor vehicle sales licenses by Southside Associates doing business as Burke's Garage, 71 Main Street. All paperwork is in order. I'll entertain a motion to send it out to pass.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Same request, second-class motor vehicle license, Cargo
Shieta.
LLC doing business as Cargo Tate, say it again?
Cargo Shieta.
Auto Sales, 104 Wind Street. All paperwork is in order. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I will be keeping Monfield Service in committee. The application's incomplete.
Okay.
Also, fourth, request by CN Wood Company Incorporated to change the name on the first-class motor vehicle sales license to CN Wood Incorporated. I'm sorry, take this back. Request by CN Wood Company Incorporated to change the name of the first-class motor vehicle sales license to CN Wood Company CO Incorporated, and a renewal of a first-class motor vehicle sales license. Did I cover that right, Gordon?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Motion to send it out to pass.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Got that?
So next up is special permits. I know you mentioned it earlier, Councilor
Yeah.
Gately, but if you want to open up and go through the process, I think we should do that.
Yeah, okay, I make a motion to open a public, special permit for 271 Salem Street. They request, to allow overnight parking for 4 vehicles. At this time, there is a, excuse me, in a 4-yard dumpster at 271. At this time, there's nobody representing them here. And my understanding is it won't be until city council meeting.
Yeah, my understanding is Councilor Mercer Bruin requested that we hold on to this for now until she could be present for this discussion, so we could just keep it in committee.
I make a motion to accept the readings of the previous journal minutes.
Councilor
No, there
Campbell,
is none?
I haven't finished those yet.
Oh, no?
I wasn't here last week. So
Okay.
We missed you.
What?
I missed you.
I'm slacking.
So what's the motion?
Motion to
to,
adjourn.
I think
just hold
motion.
on to it?
Yeah.
Yep.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Yep, we just did. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There we go. What a team effort we have.
Okay.